Greetings and welcome. This is Libby Lewis, and we are looking at the country of Spain. You can see on this slide that the wine in Spain was introduced by the Phoenicians, and it was exported and traded under Roman rule. And the Moors, when they conquered Spain, put an end to the production of wine because of their Muslim faith. Wine was reintroduced after the defeat of the Moors in 1492. Wine also kind of took a big hit under Franco, which was communist rule, and as we will see in many other communist countries, winemaking practices become behind the times. Their modern innovations and methods are not used under communist rule. But once Franco was ousted out of power and the EU specifically was set up, winemaking has made some great strides in the last 3 or 4 decades. Spain is now the 3rd largest wine producer in the world, and they by far have the largest grape acreage in the world. So more acres of grapes under vine. However, they don't juice as much and they don't produce as much as some other countries. So I think most of you are pretty aware of where Spain is located. Just keep in mind that part of this Iberian Peninsula is made up of Portugal. It's south of France, and it is very close to Morocco. Take a look at the bodies of water here and what Spain borders as far as other countries are concerned. Spain is very mountainous. There is an interior large plateau called the Mesetas Central, and it also has a lot of mountains. This actually changes the climate, and we will talk a little bit about that. To the north, bordering France, are the Pyrenees Mountains. The 2 rivers to keep in mind are the Ebro and the Douro. And there are 2 islands, the Canary and the Balearic Islands. Wine is grown everywhere in Spain, including a couple of cities in Africa that they have, but they are Spanish cities. Spain has some interesting varietals. The number 1 varietal that they have is Arian. Arian is a white grape indigenous to Spain, and basically it's used for making brandy and commercial bulk wine. So you're not going to have great wines produced from the Arian wine grape. Tempranillo is probably the most famous and well-known of the red grapes. 20% of the plantings are Tempranillo. It's basically a red. It's moderate acidity. Most reds from Spain are going to be aged in oak. And this Tempranillo has strawberry, tobacco, spice, and chalk flavorings to it. Other grape varietals grown throughout Spain include Garnacha, which is a red. It's also known as Grenache. We've seen that, or we'll continue to see that. Monastrell, which is a red, and it's also known as Mourvedre. Mourvedre is a French grape. and a Macabeo, which is a white grape. So these three varietals are often used in blending or finishing out the Tempranillo. The other grape varietals grown in Spain tend to be specific to a region and not grown throughout the country. Keep in mind, too, as you go into different areas of Spain and you see different languages, the varietals may be called something different, but they are a garnacha, for instance. In looking at the climate specifically, there is a continental climate, which is kind of counterindicative. You would think with all of the oceanic influence that you would have more of a maritime influence. However, the mountains block this maritime influence of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. The Pyrenees shield Spain from the northern winter storms that you would see typically. And what you end up with is hot summers, cold winters, and rain throughout. June, July, and August in Spain are usually pretty dry months as well. In Spain, there's been a historic lack of focus on terroir. Instead, classification has been based on time aged in oak. Wineries have pursued regulatory agents to change this so that it can be more of a typical European Union focus. Rioja is the most famous red wine produced in Spain and unquestionably one of the best. Wines of Rioja are widely exported and are respected around the world. These soils are varied throughout Rioja. It's fertile near the river, and you will note the Ebro River going through, limestone in the hills, and the best grapes from this area come from the hilly, cooler areas. The soils of Priorat differ. They are located in a mountainous region just inland from Barcelona. The area is only 18 miles from the Mediterranean Sea, and these soils are really famous to impart a distinct herbal and mineral character to the powerful deep red wines of the area. These are steep soil beds, they're difficult to harvest and maintain, and they have great drainage with deep roots. Like all members of the EU, Spanish wine laws are compliant with the EU standards. This means wines are divided into two major categories, table wines and quality wines. Within table wines, you have basic table wine, and you also have a basic table wine that has a geographical indication. All of these are outlined with specific guidelines. Within quality wines, there are 4 subcategories of wines that are recognized in Spain. The first category is VCIG. Basically, these are up-and-coming regions, and they are trying to move from a geographical indication of table wine into what will eventually be the DO, as you can see, number 2 DO. And this specifies the varietals used, crop yields, winemaking methods, and age requirements. Each region will have its own regulatory council that controls local production. As we move up the food chain for our categories of wine and quality, we have what is called DOCA. And DOCA is a higher standard than the DO. And the only 2 regions to have the DOCA designation are Rioja and Priorat. This may change in the next couple of years, but right now they have to demonstrate a higher quality as a DO for 10 years. And then finally, the last category is the Vino de Pago. There are not many of these Vino de Pagos. There's only 14, and basically this is recognized as a single vineyard of distinction. They set their own appellation rules, but located inside a DO region. All of the grapes have to be grown in the Vino de Pago on the estate. They have to be harvested, and wine has to be produced, bottled, and aged at the vineyard site. As I mentioned earlier, aging red wines in oak barrels is very common in Spain, and it's regulated by Spanish law. For PGI and PDO wines, there are 3 different designations: 18 months, 24 months, and 36 months. For PDO wines only, Joven is a young wine they released the year after it was made. So they would harvest the grapes in the fall, go ahead and make the wine, and it would be released within 1 year for that Joven wine.